The thing was unimaginably fast, despite its thick, white armor. The demon looked behind himself. It was like a white, red-eyed shadow. "Do you even know who I am?" shouted the demon. "I'm a powerful demon of our Lord." He growled before shouting, "Blood demon art! Pillars of blood!" He slammed his hands into the ground. From the dirt broke a sharp, triangle-shaped pillar that forced the creature to retreat into the shadows. The demon knew, however, that a hunter like that would not so easily give up. But whatever, he turned around to run, taking 2 steps before falling forward. He grunted as his face was pushed into the mud. That wasn't him. He'd never fall, not in a situation like this. Rolling on his back, the demon stared at his separated feet, just standing there in the dirt. "Damn it!" he shouted. And then he looked up behind himself, staring into the demonic mask of his attacker. "You are not a demon slayer. You're one of my own. Why are you doing this to your own kind?" The thing tilted its head. From behind the mask, he heard a muffled female voice, nothing more than a mere whisper. "Blood demon art. Bone nail." The creature's hand was placed onto his chest. He screamed in pain as he could feel his own bones be molded beneath his skin. A large bone spike emerging from his chest. With shaking hands, he took hold of it. No, that was his bone. He couldn't move. Oh God, he couldn't move. Blood demon art. Bone prison. As she continued touching him, he became less mobile, his body more heavy, his own skeleton beginning to envelop his muscles, becoming completely and utterly immobile. And then she quietly stepped back into the darkness. The demon now was as good as dead. The sun would soon rise, burning him to ashes. The shadow stayed by his side, uncaring, unblinking, staring down at him. It wasn't mockingly. He was just making sure she would perish. How humiliating. You were a demon, hunting demons, tasked by none other than your Lord, your creator, your God, Muzan Kibutsuji. Above all, you understood that he had no love inside of him for anyone. He was something to be feared, followed, respected, loved. And whenever a demon wasn't doing their job right, and he just didn't feel the need to do it himself because it was beneath him, he sent you to end them. Because of your position among the demons, you were given a special exception to the devouring of humans. And that was simply, you had no quota to fulfill. All you needed to do was kill demons who were either going rogue or were an embarrassment to the Demon King. And you were good at it. That's how you survived for so long. That's why Muzan cared about your continued existence. You knew as long as you did what he said, you'd survive. In your arsenal were powerful blood demon arts, mostly related to bones. Outside of molding and forming the bones of humans and demons alike, you could adjust your own. Your white armor, for example, was forged out of your chest bones. Your sword simply a fusion of 3 of your fingers on your right hand. It was a gruesome, painful transformation, only numbed by the pain you inflicted on yourself to ensure your hyper-focus. The final thing in your arsenal was the power of regeneration. It wasn't anywhere near your master's regenerational abilities, but above that of mere demon scum. In fact, it was so powerful you could survive a few seconds longer than normal demons in the sun. It still wasn't a lot, but just enough to ensure a demon was finished when you were done with them. Of course, your job would be much easier if you had a nurturing weapon, but while Muzan was fond of you, he wasn't foolish. He would not risk the accursed material be used by a demon he designed to hunt other demons to use it. You watched from a hiding spot as the sun rose across the land. The demon who was impaled by his own bones screamed as the sun touched him. And soon there was nothing left. You hid inside an abandoned shrine, your body aching and cracking as you returned to your normal humanoid form. And you'd remain here, feeding on humans who'd pass by until your master requested your services again, which, knowing him, wouldn't take long. After all, Muzan was ravenous. And then you blinked, and from one moment to the next you were kneeling on a wooden platform inside of the infinite castle. Muzan's home. As expected, the platform you were on was bloody and covered in what smelled like demon remains. The smells were familiar too. You sniffed a few more times. It was the blood of the lower ranks, except for one. No, two of them. You understood, as the smell of Muzan's anger came into your nostrils. You shivered almost unnoticeably. So the lower six had been made inert, no longer needed by your master for their failures. You heard his footsteps approach you as your nose touched the blood-stained floor. Muzan stopped next to you. Your eyes were closed, and then you bit your tongue as hard as you could, blood sputtering from the severed organ as you swallowed it. The disgusting taste of wiggling wet flesh. But your regeneration already closed the wound. It would take you a bit longer to regrow it. Probably just as long enough for this little meeting. After all, Muzan liked it when you were silent. Your quietness. You felt his foot slowly press into the back of your head, making soft circles with the tip of his toes. Muzan loved doing this to you. You could handle it with your regeneration, but he hated it when you screamed. He kicked you, punched you, used his claws to tear skin, bones, and limbs. You didn't cry or complain for even a second. But only one shameful tear rolled down your right eye. It was difficult to close your wounds quickly enough to not sully the holy grounds you were in with your worthless blood. But eventually his anger subsided just enough, and he stopped abusing you. He just stood there, above you, looking down at your miserable form. Muzan hated you. He hated you from the bottom of his heart, for one very simple reason. He grabbed you by the neck and dragged you through the twisting hallways of the infinite castle. The reason Muzan hated you was because he threw you into a bedroom. It was arguably beautifully decorated, with plants and paintings, illuminated by red paper lanterns and candles. A large European-style bed with a flower pattern stood in the corner. Sit, he ordered while pointing at a small table, which had 2 plates sitting on it. On the plates were bloody chunks of what was most likely human meat. You did as you were ordered. Looking at the table's wood, you waited for your next command, as he proceeded to sit opposite of you, like a grotesque mockery of a human husband and wife sitting at the dinner table. He began eating while you just stared at your plate, your mouth salivating, but you resisted. After all, he hasn't ordered you to eat yet. He stopped for a moment, looking at you. Muzan was waiting for any justification to carve you into tiny bits and leaving you out in the sun, or dropping you in front of a demon slayer and ordering you to be killed by them. Your obedience, after all, was eternal. And he hated that. He hated the feeling he had whenever he looked at you. He hated the feeling he had whenever he thought about you. Muzan hated you because he somehow cared about your continued existence. That's why your job had been so simple, yet important, and why he didn't give you a quota when it came to devouring humans. You were like the wife he wished for in the past, silent, obedient, taking everything he gave and delivering results without mercy or question. But worst above all, he was afraid of losing you, and that was something he could not allow. That's why he was waiting for any reason to end your miserable existence. But there was nothing. It made him crazy. Once half of his meal was eaten, he snapped his fingers. "Eat," he ordered. He hasn't given you utensils, but you also knew that he didn't wish for you to eat with your hands, or more, eat it like the worthless pig that you were. So you turned the bones in your fingers into a fork and a knife. His right eye twitched with hatred. It was what he wanted, and yet not. Slowly you cut into the supple, fresh meat. You gulped down the large amount of salvia you had before digging in. And it was disgusting, vile, abhorrent. He wasn't feeding you human. He was feeding you some animal, maybe boar, maybe something else, and your demon nature just didn't allow you to enjoy it. Thankfully, you had kept biting off your tongue, so you didn't taste it for too long. Muzan's intention was that he wanted you to retch, spit out his present, and then have a reason to end you, but you just kept eating, as vile as it was. Muzan closed his eyes, breathing in and then out. Using his powers, he twisted a finger, which forced you to dive headfirst into the flesh. You didn't complain, just remained there, face planted in the viscera, not resisting. "You disgust me," he said. "I have never seen such a sorry excuse for a woman before." His insults were what hurt you the most, ironically. He unleashed a torrent of vile slander that was difficult to resist. After all, Muzan was your master, and you hated being insulted by him. You wanted him to say nice things, like you did a good job, but of course you'd never hear that. He sighed before standing up and turning around, staring at a painting in his room. "Why do I care about you so much?" he said out loud without intending it. You suppressed the urge to smile as your heart skipped a beat. It was the sweetest compliment you had ever heard. Muzan turned around, pointing at you. "Stand up." You did as you were ordered. As you continued to stare at the plate, "Look at me." You raised your viscera-covered head to face him. He stepped closer, inspecting you. not a single twitch of your muscles, until his hand touched your chin, Muzan's thumb rubbing gentle circles over your skin. Then he stopped, before pushing it into your mouth. His thumb rubbed over your freshly regenerated tongue. Your jaw twitched to open wider as the skin scraped against your teeth for not even a second, and he narrowed his eyes. I want to hate you more, he whispered into your ear, but I can't, and that makes me angry. I want you to give me a reason to kill you this instant. Your eyes looked into his. Knowing him, that was already enough. He grabbed you by your throat and threw you onto the bed, climbing on top of you, the veins of his face pulsating before his teeth sunk into your neck. You gasped in surprise, slowly closing your eyes as he began sucking. You allowed him to do whatever he wanted to you. The bed soon covered, dripping in your gore, yet still you lived on. You were sitting in his lap, in his embrace, both of you now unclothed. He whispered into your ear, I'm going to hurt you even more tonight. His voice was almost tender. His hands caressed your back, his long sharp nails slowly scraping your skin. You closed your eyes again. You'd be spending the night with your master, and you'd feel your Lord's love, his hatred, his anger, over and over and over and over and over again. No other demon would ever experience this. This love, this care. This was the highest honor you could imagine. After all, you were his favorite, and he loved you. Thank you to the people who are supporting me on Ko-fi. You guys are keeping me alive.